You want to know just how desperate the Liberals are to hang on to power? Let me tell you a little story about buttons. Yes, buttons, but not just any buttons. These were planted, disinformation-laced, Trump-themed buttons deliberately scattered around a Conservative conference in Ottawa last weekend. And the people who did it? Liberal Party operatives. Now, you would think that that would be the scandal, but nope. The real scandal is that they admitted to it, and no one's been fired. They've not even been named, although CBC journalists know exactly who they are. So let me walk you through the scandal, dubbed Buttongate. 2 Liberal War Room staffers snuck into the Canada Strong and Free Networking Conference, a grassroots event for Conservative Canadians, and then started planting buttons that said things like "Stop the Steal" and "Make Canada Great Again." Now, they didn't hand them out proudly. They left them lying around to make it look like Conservatives brought the buttons. The Liberals were hoping the media would see them and then blame Conservatives and label them election deniers, insurrectionists, or worse, Trumpy. Now, that's not campaigning. That's a false flag operation. That's misinformation with malice. That's psychological warfare designed to smear everyday Canadians as extremists. And get this? One of the staffers actually bragged about it to a journalist in a bar, right out in the open, like it was funny, like deceiving voters is just good political fun. And what was the Liberal Party's official response? Look at this. We'll continue to run a positive campaign, which regrettably got carried away. What absolute utter nonsense. You don't get regrettably carried away into a full-blown disinformation operation with branded buttons and planted props. You plan it, you greenlight it, you execute it. This was coordinated by the same Liberal war room that claims to be the guardians of truth and defenders of democracy. I do not want to hear the Liberals utter the word disinformation ever again. They are not the arbiters of truth. They are the purposeful peddlers of lies. And yet, no names. No one's been held accountable because clearly this was authorized. You don't fire the pawns when the kings are calling the shots. And this morning, Mark Carney admitted as such.
Good morning. Kate McKenna from the CBC.
Hi.
Members of the Liberal War Room, so the Central Campaign, distributed Stop the Steal buttons at a Conservative event. Given the anti-democratic implications of this phrase, how much does this event undermine the trust in the way that the Liberals operate? And what have you done in response to these revelations?
Thanks for the question. Look, this is totally unacceptable, to be absolutely clear. And I, on behalf of my campaign, I was unaware of this behavior, but on behalf of my campaign, I apologize for it unreservedly. Okay. I've made it absolutely clear to my campaign that this behavior or anything approximating it or in that spirit is unacceptable, cannot happen again.
You get that? They were reassigned, not fired, not held accountable, just shuffled to another desk in the same war room that cooked up this stunt in the first place, because their crime isn't committing the disinformation operation. It was blabbing about it. Carney can't fire them. He needs them because this wasn't a rogue move by a couple of interns with a label maker. This was a core campaign strategy. The false narrative they were pushing, Conservatives equal Trump equals dangerous, is the entire backbone of Carney's whole campaign. If he fires the people behind this little scheme, he's admitting the entire strategy is actually a fraud. The incident confirms what many of us have been saying for years, that infamous Nazi flag photo during the Freedom Convoy, that smelled like a Liberal plant from the very beginning. And now we know this kind of sleazy tactic is exactly what they do to smear opponents. The only difference this time, they got caught. And more shockingly, the media didn't completely cover for them for once. Even CBC's Kate McKenna, yes, CBC called it a Liberal campaign-sanctioned false flag operation. That's how blatant it was.
So it's conceivable that people at this conference made these pins. And in fact, I spent time last week trying to prove that. But recently, I learned it was an operation undertaken by the Liberal War Room itself. 2 operatives went to the conference and planted these buttons, and in an attempt to tie Conservative supporters to the politically toxic Donald Trump. I was having dinner with friends, and I saw some people who I recognized to be Liberal staffers. I overheard the person next to me, a man, who had already identified himself as someone who was working in the Liberal War Room, and he's talking about how he was at the conference and planted these buttons in a Liberal campaign-sanctioned false flag operation. So I confronted him. He knew I was a journalist. I said, if you did that, then that's a story and I'll report it. At first, he conceded that he had said that, but once I said it was going to be a story, he denied having said anything at all. So I left shortly after, and then at a separate bar, a Conservative source told me another Liberal campaign staffer was also talking about it. So the next day, I put in a request for comment with the Liberal Party, and they didn't deny it. It's not unusual for political parties to play tricks like this during a campaign, but it is unusual to hear about it from them.
But let's not forget, when a single swastika showed up in the convoy, the media ran with it for weeks to brand the whole movement as hateful. When the Liberals deliberately plant American-style propaganda to smear Conservatives, the press largely parrots the Liberal excuse of regrettable jokes. So here's the question. What else have these liars faked? If they're brazen enough to admit this over beer, what haven't they admitted? We know their playbook now. Stage the stunt, smear the opposition, let the press gleefully amplify the lie, play dumb when caught. But now the wheels are coming off their little scheme. Canadians are waking up. They're asking why Poilievre doesn't seem Trumpy the way the media and the Liberals say he is. Because he's not. So the Liberals had to make it up, fabricate the evidence, create the narrative, frame the opposition. And now they've been exposed. The only question left is, what will they try next? This is the Liberal Party of Canada. This is meettheliberals.com. Dirty tricksters, liars, disinformers. This is the real disinformation campaign. This is what election interference actually looks like. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. To learn more about the liars, schemers, extremists, and dirty tricksters running to lead this country in the election for the Liberals, please go to meettheliberals.com.